PBD came to Brazil. I'm not sure if it was his first time. I follow his work, and he came to talk to President Bolsonaro. PBD, the work you do is extremely interesting, and we share a lot of passions or interests, I would think. First of all, uh, Senna, you mentioned that you saw many, many times the new movie on Netflix, and I'll tell you, I want to give you this special um, take, not only on the Netflix special per se, but on Senna. You know, you put you name your daughter, I guess your youngest daughter, Senna. But I want to give you my perception because that has also a little bit to do with Bolsonaro. Brazil has a history of looking for Salvador da Pátria. There was even a book or a soap opera at some point. We want people that will come and save us. Really, it's kind of the complex of Brazilian. You know, I guess even Jesus will have to deal with this in Brazil. Every single politician promise the riches that will solve this problem, next problem. And the worst thing is Brazilians need hope. And I agree with you, PVD. We do live in the most prosperous, peaceful, and most exciting time in human history. However, there has to be a change in perceptions. Brazilians need to change because we need to stop looking for outside solutions. We need to stop looking for people that will come and take all your problems away. We need to do the work. We need to pay the price. We need to invest in our own education. And I like the work we do, sharing content. We need to have more free speech and all less. And just like yourself, I could say I grew up in the US and I didn't free on an extreme regime like you from the Middle East, spent, I guess, a year or two in Germany on a refugee camp, and then moved to the US. I went to the US, go to school, because I realized in a time of I lost my dad when I was 15. And around 18, 19, I knew that we had lost a lot of money, and I knew I needed to learn something else. I was in Boston for like a vacation. I just went for, I was in college, and I went for a month in Boston to learn some English, and then I was gonna go to Europe to backpack. And I was sitting down on Harvard Yard, and I could feel that history, and I'm sure you can feel that too. The what America represents, and I also concur with you that a lot of Americans they don't realize how good they have. Like even in Brazil, I mean, I have it pretty good, but at the same time, we don't have the same freedoms. I'm I was asked by my wife if I really wanted to say something, some stuff that we are recording today, because I believe, and I have been talking about this since I would say 2020, 21, much more open since the past 2 years. And I tried to set up a meeting with Andrew, not Andrew, one of your partners. I forgot his name. I wanted to send you some coffee to you guys at the studio, and Ayrton Senna's, and I'm sure you have a lot of memorability. But the point is, when you see and when you feel, and when you're at Harvard Yard, at least for me, it was kind of all the people that walked in those holograms, people that went to become Nobel Peace Prize, um, impact governments, and that science business. I knew that what I had in Brazil would not be sufficient. So I did that leap and I dropped everything. I dropped law school and I went to study, did many years in the US, Europe, back in Brazil. And we're doing a project in the US with an American company. But it does, worries me what's happening in Brazil. And we need to reform a lot of things, but I welcome your trip to Brazil. And with more people, Brazil is such an interesting country because I do believe there's a lot we can learn from Israel, from the US. And my take on it is because the US political system, which we copy, is extremely interesting because it gives a protection for the minorities, but also a way of governing free people. At the same time, Israel, it was a promise given by God to Abraham, to everyone. So the Jewish, the Judeo Christian principles should come back to our shores once again. And I believe Brazil has a little bit of all of those. And we need to teach the world and learn from the world. And with that, one thing we need to stop is this idea of someone who's going to save us. But at the same time, it's really interesting what happened to Senna. He gave us hope. And the same thing in 2022, I went to a rally. I was invited, and I saw on the background, I was in Minas Gerais, in Belo Horizonte. I met Cleitinho, who became the senator. Um, Nicholas was there. It was the first time I met him. He was going up to the sound truck, and I was there, and I saw this square, which is called the Liberty Square in Belo Horizonte. I'm from Minas, but it reminded me a lot of what I felt in Boston because you have the Freedom Trail, you have all that, the discussions during the Revolution, the Tea Party, all that movement for freedom, for determination, and a lot of those men, the forefathers. And I know you have been questioned by some Americans when you call it forefathers because they're more. America is not just a country; it's an ideal. And that's why it's very important for us to differentiate what America is or should be from some of this deep state or the bureaucracy that took over, some different interests that are tearing apart that fabric, the society that should be whole. I've also walked those grounds in Gettysburg, and I'm a political scientist as well. And those, the words in that very simple speech from Lincoln. And I saw you mention Team of Rivals, and I clearly see what Trump is doing with Team of Rivals, bringing RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, people from different positions. And I believe the new American Revolution, with nothing to do with revolution of war, but a revolution of ideas, is where the world can once again have hope. That's why when we think of Senna, he was, and I don't think the Netflix does it justice, but he was much more. The work he did on the shadows with no accolation, nobody really knew all the charity he was doing. And I've seen him a few times. I was so young, but on like events and in Campinas, there was a nightclub. I was about, I think, 16, 17. But we all, no, I wasn't 17. I was younger. He died in 93, right? So yeah, 16, 17. We all waited for Sunday. Sometimes Sunday in the morning, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. because it was in Suzuka in Japan. But the real thing is Brazil was going through this chaotic process, this chaotic time, inflation, no hope. So every other Sunday, we had hope. We had hope to see the Brazilian flag flying high. So on that Sunday, when we saw the extent, I think every single Brazilian lost a little bit of hope. And we never reached that point again because he was not a politician. He was really an example of hardworking, not like some football player that just go to the nightclubs, etc. No, he's an example of hardworking people that we have a lot in Brazil. So one thing that I believe the Netflix special didn't give it justice is because they didn't show at least, I don't know, a couple minutes his funeral. Because that it's very similar to what happened in America when you lose hope. And I can see that with the Trump victory, hope was put back. And I was never a Trump fan in 2016. I bought the whole narrative that Trump is this and that. But obviously I asked myself if that was the truth. And the past 4 years was just chaotic. But and I don't want to compare Trump to Bolsonaro. I think they're very, very different. Bolsonaro is a much simpler man. And when you see the people coming around him, and it's the question you asked him, he did bring. I don't know if he brought hope, but he brought honesty. Like he biggest advantage is that he tells what it is, just like Trump. He tells as it is. At the same time, Trump, I believe, has a little bit more of a because he has a lot of experience in media. He knows a little bit more how to deal with repercussions, or maybe he doesn't go as far as sometimes Trump did, Bolsonaro did. So I don't think they're similar in that regards, but whatever he says is what really he thinks. And the entire world is looking for people to just say what they think. We are all tired of politicians that just lie. And we know. And the worst thing is we allow ourselves to fall into the lie. So it was a very good interview. I hope you do others with him. Because if I had a magic wand, I would ask President Lula to bring Bolsonaro into the government. And for us to have a government of a coalition, to have peace back in Brazil. Because we all know we don't have freedom anymore when you have people in government in Congress being arrested for things they say, and it doesn't really follow our own constitution. But I hope and I have trust in the people in Brazil, and especially the people around President Lula, around the Supreme Court justice, that they will bring reason to everyone. Because I'm not, and I understand emotions are high. So everyone really wants justice and blood and this and that. You know, and I say blood is not killing, but just justice being made, people in jail, etc. But I bring ourselves, and I know you're a Christian as well, to perhaps follow a different path. And this has only been tested once. It was in South Africa, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. So if we put Lula back in jail, or maybe Moraes, Gilmar Mendes, there will be justice carried out. But in the end of the day, this process will take a lot of blood, energy, and a lot of people will suffer. You know, there will be more chaos. So if we come to the table, all the sides, and just agree on one thing, honor people like Senna, they just wanted to give it for Brazil. So I know we need to do some compromises. You have people on the right, on the left, but that's fine. We need to do this because it's the best course of action for the people. You know, PBD, When you go to the supermarket here, it's crazy. I have no idea how people are coping. So my concern, and I'm using this if anyone ever sees this, is just because it should be better for Brazil and for Brazilians for us to find a different path and for us to hold on to the thirst of justice and discussion of impeachments that will block Congress, will block every single things and balance the budget we need so much. It is time, and this is my opinion. And again, we should bring things to the table, and this is what I want to bring to you. It was an amazing interview. I believe people really gravitate around Bolsonaro. When you see him on the streets, he's genuine. I recently I was in Vitoria catching a flight, and I thought was maybe a rock star arriving. And he stops, he talks to people, gets picture, and I even got my phone and I recorded because it was so genuine. And clearly you could see people that are from different backgrounds. You know, Vitoria is a smaller city, and he was there for an event, and people really navigate around him. So just like it happened in South Africa, where the president of South Africa at the time, forgot his name, he took Mandela, and I'm not comparing Mandela, just an example, took Mandela around the country for about a year or two before he got out of jail because he was genuinely the next leader of South Africa. And he was instrumental in bringing peace to South Africa, where the majority black didn't took revenge, didn't take revenge on the whites. So for President Lula, my plea is you've done a good run. It is time to retire. It is time to bring the country together. This will be your legacy. If you call yourself the father of the poor, let's do, and I honestly believe you do care about the poor. You you went through this. So let's bring peace. Let's bring people to the table because we don't negotiate peace deals with our friends. And we're brothers and sisters. We're not enemies. We live in the same country. We may diverge of some policies, but that should be it. It is time to put the guns down because a lot of the social movements align the PT, they invade houses, they invade farms. So it's time for peace. The world has changed. The media and the truth will come out. That's something that's written in scripture. There's no way you can silence the people. You can kill one, you can put another one in jail. And just like Bolsonaro, he is on the tip of a spear. He could have stayed in the US. He went back to Brazil. He's de facto ineligible. He cannot run because of a stupid conviction of nothing. So due process, and let's not really just get into a conflict with the US because that could be have very bad repercussions, financial repercussions, commercials. So let's bring the pressure down. Let's bring the tone down. And PBD, I wish you've seen some of the Santa's race here in São Paulo in the past. And I also hope you can come to see this country united because we're more than just what you saw. We have been for decades such a peaceful and civilized and neutral country. We need to sell to the US, we need to sell to Europe, we need to sell to China, we need to sell to Russia because commerce is the best peacemaker. At the same time, we need to be our own independent country. And that's what Bolsonaro brought to the people. And we need to teach our kids the values that are in our Constitution. Among them, the respect for diversity and for freedom of speech. And I would go even further that we need to, as much as we copy everything in the American political system, we should make sure freedom of speech is just like in the US. And one of the reasons the US is the leader in a lot of things, in technology, in commerce, in finance, is because of that. That's really what tyrants want to take away. And we're not a country of tyrants. We're not a Venezuela. We're not going to be a Cuba. Thank you for your work, and I hope we can have other conversations.